Hey everyone, it's the Tarot Counselor. Today we're going to do a pick a card reading on how they feel about you right now. So that's your crush or your person. And so we have here is we'll move the deck out of the way. So we've got three piles of cards. We've got pile 1, pile 2, and pile 3. So go ahead and take a minute to think about which pile is resonating with you and what your current situation is, and then we'll be able to pick one and get started. But first, go down in the comments and mention your zodiac sign and which pile you're leaning towards, so we can kind of see which energies are matching with which zodiac signs. And then if you like these tarot card readings, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. And then if you have any specific situations or concerns you'd like a more in-depth tarot reading, check out the links in the description to see how you could work with me. Alright, so hopefully you've had the time to kind of think through and figure out which pile you want. So again, we got pile 1, pile 2 in the middle, and then pile 3. So figure out which one you think you're vibing with and check the timestamps below in the description if you want to jump to those. But if you want to watch all of them or you're vibing with more than one pile, feel free to go ahead and do that. But for those of you who chose pile 1, move these to the side. Let me lift these up so we can see them a little bit better. So pile 1, let's see what we have here. So we have the Queen of Cups, the King of Cups, and then the Four of Wands. This is actually really interesting, a really positive, but a very interesting dynamic going on here. So since cups deal with, they're based on the water sign, so it's really dealing with your emotions, things that resonate with you. So that's obviously why relationships and stuff like that would fall into this scenario. I do read the court cards a little bit differently. You got two court cards here. The fact that they're king, queen, female, that doesn't really resonate as much. I'll kind of go through how I explain how I read the court cards. So it's kind of like planting the soil and growing some crops. So the pages are a fertile soil or a fertile environment for whatever that is, in this case your emotions. And then the knights are kind of like the early inklings or the first read on the situation. Queens would say that you've had time to sit with the situation, you've internalized it completely, so you know inside your head exactly what you want to do. You just haven't necessarily taken action on it. Whereas the kings are the action takers, so they fully know what they want, whether it's a tough conversation, whatever it might be. They know exactly what they want in the situation. They're ready to take action on it and bring it to fruition. So in this scenario, I think the fact that we have here, you can see just by the body language kind of facing away from each other, it ends up being you have, one of you is ready to go forward and ready to, have this relationship. In fact, the fact that you're both cup says that both of you are feeling the same types of things, feeling the same type of emotions about each other, which is really positive. But one of you is ready to go, just because the king is generally masculine doesn't necessarily mean that it's the male in this kind of relationship. But this would say that one of you is, kind of almost not ready to take charge, but you know what you want to have this relationship, and you're ready to go for it. While the other one, you have fully internalized that this is what you want to have happen. You just haven't communicated anything about it or taken any action upon it. So the other person may not know at all how deeply you're feeling for them right now, and that's kind of like you see as they're kind of back to each other, even though they're really resonating very deeply, because these are very advanced, or what they call more mature cards. So this would say that both of you have really spent a lot of time thinking about this, and you do want to have this relationship together, but it turns out that one of you is just not communicating that or not taking action upon it, even though you feel it deeply and you know it in your heart this is exactly what you want, while the other one is ready to go and take action on it, but they might be hesitating because they're not getting any feedback or any, and that's why you see the back-to-back here, they're not really feeling the energy from you. So that's why they may not have taken the action that you were hoping or even wishing they would take. The good news for this is you could just easily overcome this. So depending on your specific situation, your relationship, figure out whether you are the king energy, or you're the queen energy. So if you are the queen energy and you know that this is what you want, you just haven't communicated or given kind of hint, that's really what you should be doing. Because once you do that, that's why you get to this immediately, the Four of Wands. So wands really deal with your spirit, fire sign type of energy. 4 in numerology is a very stable foundation. You want to build the foundation of the house on a very stable square foundation. And you can see here, you've got the castle in the background and kind of a celebration and so forth. So when you see this in the tarot, this means there's like a very stable home life or very stable relationship kind of home life situation. So what this means is once you kind of overcome this, almost like a not barrier, but just lack of communication or lack of clear, transparent communication with each other, that you're both interested in each other, then things will quickly go to a really solid foundation, really solid relationship. So the main advice out of this one is you really just have to have the conversation. So it seems like one of you is certain but hasn't overtly said anything that would give the other one the signal that that's exactly what you want or you're interested in them. So that the person who may be certain about this may be hesitating or hasn't taken all the action that they would want to do because they're not getting the feedback from you to make overtly. So this is all, Queen is very internal, right? So it's very internal energy, your own intuition, your own feelings, but nothing external, whereas the King is more action or external. So the advice for this situation is just have the real open, honest conversation about your feelings, and then based on this, things should easily kind of progress forward because you both feel the same way about each other, and it's resonating on this water emotional level. That's why you got lots of blue in the background and the water behind them, water around them, and the fish. It's everything to dealing with emotions. And so as soon as you have this open conversation and you communicate this, then you both realize, oh, well, why were we hesitating, or why were we not communicating about this if we're both feeling the same thing? Like, well, that's kind of how I get the back-to-back thing. Why did this seem like such a barrier or obstacle when it really wasn't, when it really just is, we had to have the conversation and have it out and really figure out that this is what we both want to do. And then you'll find yourself quickly transitioning to a very stable relationship, because that's what both of you want and what's resonating between you. You just haven't had the opportunity or the time to really kind of communicate it or let the other one know. So in summary for this one, obviously they would say that this is a really great potential relationship. You just have to overcome whether it's the insecurities or uncertainty or the fear of rejection, whatever the case may be, and just really have that honest communication, because you're both resonating, you're both feeling it, so it should be a very easy conversation once you get past that to then go to a very stable relationship with the Four of Wands. So pile one, I think overall it's a very positive one. I think it does talk about getting over some of your own anxieties, insecurities, or concerns or hesitations you may have, and really just taking that leap of faith that if this is what you want, you should go for it, and just kind of set your intent. That's kind of what the tarot always says, is you need to like set your intentions out to the world, and the universe will respond to that. That's kind of like karma, is put out what you want, and the universe will respond to it. But if you're holding it inside and not communicating that, then there's no way for the universe to take any action for you on your behalf. So you need to kind of overcome that fear and just make the leap of faith that, if this is truly what I want, and I know that this is what I want, if I put it out there, the universe will conspire and bring it for me. Okay? So overall, it's I think a very positive reading for you, pile one, and I hope everything goes well. And comment in below if you have any updates or anything like that based on how things are going. We'll next go to those who chose pile 2. And so pile 2 cards here. Pile 2 is a very different situation here. You can see even just the tone and the color of the cards changing. Instead of the blues, the emotionals, you get lots of kind of black. I don't want to say negative, because I don't view any cards in the tarot as necessarily inherently positive or negative, but this does acknowledge a few things that are going on here. There's been some drama. There's been a lot of drama in this situation. So first you have the Ten of Swords. So swords are really about the air signs. It's about our communications. If you think in the old days, people used to fight with swords. If you write the word swords and you move the S to the end, now you get words, right? So in modern times, we don't really have literal duels with swords anymore, but we do have verbal duels, and that causes lots of conflict and tension in people, because swords relate to air signs, so about communication. That could lead to lots of conflict. So with the Ten of Swords is really what it looks like here, which is you have someone literally, there's been lots of drama, lots of conflict in this situation. It's literally been keeping you up at night. You are literally losing sleep. It couldn't be more overt than that right there. So you're literally losing sleep over this situation. Sorry, Nine of Swords. So Nine of Swords, but what then this does progress from the 9 to the 10, so going from 9 kind of ending completion in numerology to 10, which would kind of start the next cycle. So this would be a 10 would be a 1 again. So the good news is, what it acknowledges is, yes, there certainly has been lots of drama, lots of conflict, lots of tension, lots of loss of sleep, sleepless nights, and so forth. But the good news, at least with the 10, is it kind of acknowledges, as bad as it has been, that it's not going to get any worse. The worst is over. So that's why you can kind of see, deader than dead, right? The situation's as dead as it's going to get. You can't stick another fork in the situation because every negative thing or every blow up, whatever blow up you happen to have, every negative thing that could have possibly been said has been said. But then it kind of talks about from there, that you can see the sun kind of rising down here. So that says that going from completely dark sky to dark sky with a little bit of sunrise is saying the conflict is over, the sun is rising. So now that's where the 1 in the numerology, the new beginning, can happen. But these two do acknowledge for certain that there has been a significant amount of conflict, a significant amount of tension. Maybe you've both said things that you either didn't mean or really hurt the other person. So instead of trying to fix the situation, you got in this downward spiral of conflict where one of you would hurt the other, so the other would react and then maybe say, almost cutting you with the tongue or the words, that it might say something that you might regret or might really hurt the other person. So then you get in this downward spiral that kind of goes back and forth where neither of you are making progress towards what you really want, but you're just kind of having argument after argument or rehashing things or rehashing the conflict of whatever is the core issue that started this whole thing. So the bright spot of this is the last card here is the Page of Swords. So as I mentioned, if you read anything about card 1 or the set of the cards 1, pile 1, it said pages are kind of like the fertile soil in farming. So page means it's now a fertile environment to have real communication, because you've got the swords here again, which is another air sign. So it says, despite all this conflict and all this drama that's been going on, you have both kind of gotten it out of your system. You've released whatever you needed to release, and now hopefully each of you had a chance to breathe or take a break. And now what the Page of Swords is saying is that the environment is there for you to actually have a reasonable conversation. And maybe if you feel you need to apologize or have accept apology from the other person, to say, how do we move forward from here? How do we start to have more productive conversations and communications using the swords, rather than negative, non-productive conversations where we're just literally hurting each other and causing lots of drama and tension. So that's mostly what the Page of Swords would say. So this doesn't say that the first conversation that you're going to have, this is just in the beginning, right? This doesn't mean that the first conversation you're going to have is to fix everything and all the pain and all the hurt is over. That's not what this is saying at all. This just says the environment is right for that first initial conversation or reaching out or apology, whatever the case may be, to acknowledge the drama and the hurt that has been caused. And then to say, okay, it may be a longer road or a longer journey. How do we go from there? Because if you think about, planting a farm or growing crops, so the page is really the soil. So if the soil is right, then you got to, make sure you plant the seeds in the right soil, and then be patient and wait for them to grow an entire season. So this would say is that's the step that you're at right now, is things are cooled off enough that you can actually have, hopefully, a productive conversation, or at least initiate a productive conversation that kind of stops or heads you in a different direction instead of all the drama, and you can kind of actually communicate or start to move forward. It doesn't say things will get fixed immediately, or maybe necessarily not at all, because you can see anytime there are clouds in the tarot, cloud says some of the information is hidden from you. So you don't have all the information as to either what caused it or how or why someone reacted so much. So you're going to have to do some work, some honest communication, to kind of dig through and say, well, why did this happen? Why did we get in this kind of vicious circle of hurting each other? But at least says that the environment is right for taking the first step. And the first step would be, have an initial conversation, plant the seeds to figure out where things grow. It doesn't guarantee a positive outcome or what might be, but at least says if you choose to kind of get back together or work through the issues that you've had, that that this would be the starting point to do that. Or it may say, the environment, and you have those kind of conversations, and you say you can't get past whatever had happened or whatever drama it had, and you kind of agree to go on your own way, but at least you're parting on more a positive note or a positive discourse rather than just total drama and total, negativity and stuff like that. You can at least have the conversation, come to some kind of agreement together as to what is best and what you want to do, and then figure out and how you bring that to fruition. So I at least want to acknowledge that I do recognize that this is really probably, this would say things have been kind of difficult. It does say a lot of drama, a lot of conflict, a lot of pain, a lot of sleepless nights, but the sun is starting to rise, the positives, and the environment is there to at least kind of reach out or start some communications to figure out how you go from here, how you start to approach it with a more clear-headed, a level head, like from sleeping on it and taking some time apart and figuring things out. So hopefully you can have a more productive conversation that leads things in a more positive direction going forward. So definitely, again, comment below for any updates as to what's going on with that situation, or if you've been able to make any kind of progress or anything like that. I'd love to know any updates on that. Okay, and the last pile here, which is pile number 3. So if you are pile number 3, these are the cards for you. Right off the bat, this is a very interesting set of cards here because they're all major arcana cards. So if you haven't had readings from me before, haven't seen a lot of these videos from me, I definitely believe in tarot being called the, kind of the road or the way. Kind of shows you the journey, your spiritual journey, to kind of battle the everyday life that we hear of on the earthly plane, which is kind of what the minor arcana cards, and then you've got these 21 trump cards, or the major arcana cards as they're called, which are really more messages from, or warnings from your spirit guides, guardian angels, whatever you choose to believe in. That's what they're kind of bringing you here. And then that their mission is really to, not even say ignore the things that are going on in the earthly plane, the day-to-day drama that we all have, but that it's more connected to your higher purpose, your calling, your mission in life, whatever you feel connected to, whatever your spiritual journey was as you intended as you came into this life. You had some kind of mission or something you wanted to accomplish, and your spirit guides and guardian angels and the major arcana are here to kind of keep you on the path so that you can hopefully eventually accomplish your spiritual goals. So this would say off the bat, having 3 major arcana cards, this would say what is going on right now is significant towards your your true mission or what you want in life. So it isn't just saying that this is your person or your crush is the outcome of what the how they feel about you right now or where things go. Isn't just necessarily just day-to-day things that are going on. It does have a greater importance or greater significance to your life journey, which may mean you're meant to learn something for the other person that really helps you or builds you, or really means you were meant to be together and kind of continue the journey together, and they'll help you. But some point, this person it was intended to come into your life to either educate you or help you in a certain way, or to be kind of your partner in the life to take you through this journey and kind of help out based on what you want to accomplish. So we'll go through them in order. First one here is the Hierophant. So what's interesting about these cards, the Hierophant I really read as like, I know some people read it a little bit differently. I have a little bit more of a bend towards, I love bringing in, you'll see numerology and astrology into my readings. So the Hierophant I read is more of like Saturn and astrology. So this is like the peer pressure, the societal norms, and the situation. So if you're asking, well, how do they feel about me right now? This would say is how they feel about you, whether if it's not lining up with how they're communicating with you, or how things seem to be right now. There's a certain amount of peer pressure. That's what the Hierophant is. It's like the dogma, the societal norms. It would be, the other examples would be is like, well, obviously if you're on the football team and a football player, you should date cheerleaders. The most common stereotypical things you can imagine. And in readings, the Hierophant might come up and say, well, that's the stereotypical norm or what is expected through the people you hang out with. but the peer pressure you may feel, but if you may need to buck or go against that system if you really feel a calling towards someone else that may not fit that norm or that societal stereotype. So that's kind of Saturn is kind of the restricting planet in astrology. So what this one says is, in the way I read this one for this reading, is there is some kind of peer pressure because no matter what group you belong with, whether it's a sports club or a group of friends or something like that, either consciously or subconsciously, their values, their beliefs will kind of circulate around to you, which does come with some unwritten rules, unspoken expectations, or whatever the case may be, that can cause some conflict or problems for you down the road, or at least you have to acknowledge that peer pressure may be there for you to kind of behave in a certain way. So kind of get what this is. This is almost saying how they feel about you right now is there almost is this unspoken, whether you guys are hanging out in the same kind of social circle and you've always been kind of, known that maybe you'll be together, or you've had some interest in each other, or the two of you would be perfect together. So you're getting this kind of peer pressure from the friends or the people around you is like, oh, are you guys married yet? Are you guys dating yet? Whatever the case may be, you have this like, peer pressure from your friends of like, oh, you should be together, you should be together, you should be together. Which may be right and acknowledge the connection that other people see that you two have. But what the next card says here is the Hermit. The Hermit is more of, you can see, if you look to the right in tarot, that's kind of more action or active phase. If you're looking more towards the left, it's more passive phase. So the Hermit, he's the one who's more passive. So he's not openly social. He's kind of withdrawn from society, kind of looking within to try to better himself. So what does it say is, your person feels the societal pressure, whatever people are saying, if whether it's friends constantly commenting, oh, you two should be together, or it seems like you two would make a good couple, or whatever the case may be. But as of right now, whatever's going on with them is they feel the need to kind of look inward and kind of work on themselves and figure out what they want. So it's not that they don't feel that and they're not, acknowledging that's kind of how things seem. We do seem to be more than just friends, or we do seem to be, kind of paired off, or people think of us as being together or coupling us in a relationship. But as of right now, their kind of attention right now is kind of focused on, working on themselves or improving themselves, or kind of going on their own kind of spiritual journey, which kind of says to a point that they don't have themselves figured out right now. So they really are conflicted internally, and they can't really maybe express everything that you may want at this time, or acknowledge what everyone else is saying should be, because they feel that they need to do some own work on them. You may, I don't know if the conversation would be that maybe there's something else going on, or some other family things that would cause them to want to, no, it's not necessarily, the Hermit doesn't necessarily withdraw completely from society, but they would say that they want to pause kind of from like introducing additional elements right now, and they want to do this self-reflection. You can see the star here in the lantern. It kind of represents they're looking for that wisdom, that ancient knowledge. So this says, that they feel the pressure, but they're almost like on a personal journey of self-discovery, or trying to figure out themselves first before they really figure out what they want. And that's why this flows perfectly into the third card here, which is the Hanged Man. So the Hanged Man is really all about kind of this kind of being caught between two worlds or two situations. So in this case, it would be, this situation between the acknowledged societal pressure, or what everyone sees, like, oh yeah, you two should be together. It looks like you guys are already a couple. Why hasn't this happened yet? Versus on this need or desire to pull away. They're kind of torn between those two energies, and that's why the Hanged Man is kind of caught between two worlds. A lot of times, in tradition, the Hanged Man is kind of caught between the earthly plane or their spiritual journey. So on the earthly plane, they may be feeling all the societal pressure from everyone to conform to what people think they should be, but they're feeling this kind of calling on the spiritual plane to say, well, now's not the time for this. As of right now, the time is to kind of really work on ourselves, to make sure we get ourselves figured out. And that's kind of the how they feel torn or caught between both worlds. Interestingly, in history for the tarot, the Hanged Man is hanged upside down. This is actually how they used to hang deserters in the military, specifically the Italian military, years and years ago. So sometimes some tarot decks will have this reflected with a military uniform, or more specifically and an old Italian military uniform. Because what it kind of says is, if you're caught between these two worlds, in order to align yourself with what you believe is your spiritual path or your spiritual journey, you may have to go against the grain of what's going on the earthly plane, which is kind of the Hierophant really represents that kind of peer pressure or dogma that's going on in that scenario, acknowledging that and says, well, if that's what everyone's expecting or all everyone's doing, I kind of have to go against the grain or almost be seen as difficult or not necessarily an outcast, but going against all the ideas that everyone else has, going against my friends, going against what's commonly accepted, in order to better connect with your spiritual journey on the spiritual plane, which is kind of what they see from the hermit, to say, okay, now is not the time for this right now. I need to kind of work on myself and figure out and make myself better. But it's causing me some kind of torn kind of energy because they feel it. So it would say that there is a connection with you, and they fully acknowledge that that's kind of the unspoken thing that everyone talks about or everyone kind of assumes is going on, but yet they're feeling torn between it because they're getting pulled in to kind of look internally for themselves to see what's going on with them versus just kind of conforming with what everyone else is expecting. So in this scenario, what I would either say is you got to figure out what's right for you. You can either give them the space and the patience to help them, or kind of give them the space to kind of go on that spiritual journey, to walk about whatever they need to do to take the time to work on themselves. Or if you feel like you're not ready to wait for that, you may just have to move on and say, despite the connection that we have, that this is not worth waiting for. But the fact that this is coming from the major arcana, which is meaning your spirit guides, your guardian angels telling you this message, I think it would say is you may have a role here to play with them, and they're trying to look inward and almost be there for them without the expectations of where it may lead, but just help them however they need to be helped, because it could be a situation with larger context or more things that you may understand or observe from their history, their family history, whatever the case may be. But if you're just patient or help them out as much as you can, then that may be kind of how you resolve this kind of conflict, or this kind of conflict that he's feeling, and maybe open him back up to being open to have a relationship with you. So I hope this is helpful for you. And of course, if you comment below, just give us some updates on what's going on with you in this specific situation. I'd like to hear what's going on with everybody who chose pile 3, and hopefully wish you the best, because this is, as the situation is very important. That's why I would say I would be less likely to say, oh, I'm just this situation, I'm just going to leave just because it's not easy, or I'm not getting the situation, that the end result that I want out of it. This is more of like, okay, there's something more important going on here in the short term that's more connected with their true spiritual journey, and I need to be there for them, maybe in a different capacity than I may want right now. But the outcome may be better if you help them get to the other side of that spiritual journey. So that might not be what you wanted to hear at this point, but I think that's what's going on in this situation. So if you have any kind of other questions or comments, to leave those below, and make sure you subscribe if you like these types of videos. And if you have a more specific situation, or you want more clarity to your specific relationship or your specific issues, check out the description to see how you can work with me to get your own personalized readings.